bill signed by the president this week is welcome news for a solar panel manufacturer in the process of planting roots in the North Country. 7 News reporter Lexi Bruning live in studio with more on what the tariffs mean on China and what it could mean for the local company Convolt Energy.
Jeff, President Joe Biden has slapped new tariffs on Chinese supplies, one of them being solar panels. Local economic officials say it paves the way for solar panel manufacturer Convolt to continue with its plans to build in Jefferson County. Nestled next to Watertown International Airport in the town of Hounsfield is a clearing, waiting for Convolt Energy's solar panel manufacturing facility to take shape.
This is a tremendous opportunity for Jefferson County.
Amid delays, Convolt got a big win this week. On Tuesday, President Joe Biden slapped new tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles and other green energy imports, including solar panels. Chinese solar manufacturers are known for dumping, a practice where companies in one country export a project to another country at a lower price.
This really levels the playing field for American manufacturers to compete with Chinese equipment.
Convolt Energy CEO Harry Atchison tells 7 News the loopholes being exploited by Chinese manufacturers need to be closed, so, quote, we can close our financing and complete construction of our factories. Jefferson County Economic Development CEO Marshall Weir calls this a real opportunity for manufacturers like Convolt. The project had been delayed a few times while the company was working on financing, which economic officials say has been difficult given Chinese prices.
We're working on extending our land development agreement for the project at the airport, and we're expecting things to get moving fairly quickly on that.
Convolt is one of 7 U.S. manufacturers that make up the American Alliance for Solar Manufacturing Trade Committee. It signed an anti-dumping petition to also include Chinese companies working in Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Atchison tells 7 News, quote, this is much needed for manufacturers like Convolt, which is in the process of setting up the largest cell factory in the United States right here in Watertown, New York. As for where the project stands, Atchison says Convolt is working with its bankers to finalize funding and a start date for operations. Around 35 to 40 people are already working for the company at the Jefferson County Economic Development Building. Jeff.
Lexi Bruning live tonight. Thank you.